Imagine waiting your whole life to meet your idol. And then he walks up to you. No warning, no announcement. Just Michael Jackson standing right in front of you, smiling. That's exactly what happened to the people you're about to see. Some of them cried. Some of them couldn't even speak. And some of them refused to let go. These are the moments Michael Jackson fans still talk about today. Moments nobody saw coming. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button because these stories only get more unbelievable from here. 1. The first look. There's something about meeting the king of pop for the very first time that breaks people wide open. For one fan, it wasn't a concert. It wasn't a red carpet. It was a quiet hallway, a security guard stepping aside, and suddenly, there he was. Her knees buckled, her hands went straight to her face, and before Michael could even say hello, she was already in tears. He didn't rush her. He didn't turn away. He simply reached out, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and waited, giving her the moment she needed. "It's okay," he said softly. "You be good." That's it, 4 words. But for her, it was everything she'd been waiting years to hear. This is what made Michael Jackson different from every other star of his time. He understood that a fan wasn't just a name in a crowd. She was a person carrying a lifetime of admiration, and he treated that admiration like something sacred. 2. The gift nobody expected. Not every surprise came from Michael. Sometimes it was the fans who surprised him. One young man waited for hours outside a hotel, holding nothing but a small, wrapped gift. When security tried to move him along, he refused to budge. "Please," he said, "just give this to Michael, just this one thing." When Michael finally appeared, the fan pushed forward, breathless, holding out the gift with shaking hands. Michael paused. He looked at the man, then at the gift, and instead of walking past, he stopped completely. He took it personally, not through a bodyguard, not through an assistant, Michael Jackson himself. "Thank you," he whispered. "I love you too." For a man who could have anything in the world, it was clear. A small handmade gift from a stranger meant more to him than most people realized. 3. The car door that opened. Perhaps one of the most talked about surprises happened outside a studio late in the evening. A young fan had been standing outside for hours, hoping for just a glimpse. As Michael's car pulled up, she pressed herself against the barrier, calling his name over and over. Then something happened that nobody expected. The car door opened. Michael leaned out, looked directly at her, and instead of driving away, he invited her inside. For the next few minutes, she sat beside the most famous entertainer on the planet, talking, laughing, and living a memory she would replay for the rest of her life. It wasn't planned. It wasn't for cameras. It was simply Michael Jackson choosing kindness over convenience. 4. The fan who wouldn't leave the stage. If you've ever watched footage from Michael's concerts, you know his stage presence was electric. But some of the most unforgettable moments happened when the show paused, because a fan simply refused to leave his side. Security tried, gently at first, to guide her back to her seat. She held on tighter. The crowd began to cheer, not out of chaos, but out of pure emotional support. They understood exactly what she was feeling, because many of them felt the same way. Michael didn't signal for her to be removed quickly. Instead, he turned toward her, smiled, and let the moment breathe. It wasn't about losing control of the show. It was about recognizing that, for this one fan, this single moment meant more than anything else in her life. 5. Spotted in the crowd. Sometimes, the biggest surprises came from Michael simply noticing. During one public appearance, his eyes moved across a massive crowd of thousands and stopped on one young fan holding a handwritten sign. Most performers would have kept walking. Michael didn't. He pointed directly at him, mouthed a quiet, "I see you," and gave a small wave meant only for that one person. For a boy standing in a sea of strangers, that single gesture turned an ordinary day into a core memory, one he would tell his children about decades later. This is the part of Michael Jackson's legacy that often gets overlooked. It wasn't just about massive world tours or record-breaking albums. It was about individual moments of recognition that made ordinary people feel seen by someone extraordinary. 6. Words that meant everything. Fans often say the same thing when asked about meeting Michael Jackson. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. "I love you, Michael," one fan managed to say through tears. "Love you too," he replied. Simple, sincere, no hesitation. 2 people, a few words, and yet it captured everything Michael Jackson represented to millions around the world. A connection that felt personal, even in front of thousands of onlookers. It's easy to forget, watching old footage decades later, just how overwhelming it must have been to stand that close to him. And yet, in every clip, Michael's reaction remained the same. Calm, warm, and present. 7. The backstage surprise. Not every unforgettable moment happened in front of cameras. Some of the most touching stories came from backstage, far away from the noise of the crowd. One fan, working as part of the event staff, never expected to do more than carry equipment that night. She certainly never expected Michael to notice her at all, but as he walked past the busy hallway, he slowed down, turned back, and asked her name. She could barely answer. He thanked her, not for anything extraordinary, just for being part of the team that made the night possible. Then he walked on, leaving her standing there in complete shock. It's a small story, no big gesture, no dramatic scene. But it captures something important about Michael Jackson. Fame never stopped him from noticing the people the world usually overlooked. 8. A promise kept. Perhaps one of the most heartwarming surprises came from a promise made years earlier. A young fan had once written a letter, hoping, more out of dreaming than expectation, that Michael might one day read it. She never imagined a reply. Then, unexpectedly, an invitation arrived. She was going to meet him. When the day finally came, she stood frozen, unable to process that the letter she wrote as a child had somehow found its way into his hands. Michael greeted her warmly, mentioning details from her letter that only someone who had actually read it could know. "You didn't forget," she said, still in disbelief. "I never forget the people who believe in me," he replied. For her, it wasn't just a meeting. It was proof that somewhere, in the middle of a career filled with global attention, her small letter had actually mattered. 9. Why these moments still matter. Michael Jackson's surprises were never about staged performances or publicity stunts. They came from something much simpler. His awareness that every fan in front of him carried a story, a struggle, and a reason for loving him so deeply. He didn't have to stop his car. He didn't have to take a gift personally. He didn't have to acknowledge a single face in a stadium of thousands. He didn't have to remember a letter written years before or learn the name of someone working quietly behind the scenes. But he did, again and again. That's why, even now, fans continue to share these stories, not because they're rare, glossy Hollywood moments, but because they reveal a side of Michael Jackson that felt human, humble, and real. Every generation discovers these clips again, and every time, the reaction is the same. Disbelief, followed by tears, followed by a deeper appreciation for a man who could have stayed distant but chose connection instead. That is, in many ways, the real legacy of Michael Jackson. Not just the music, not just the dance moves the world tried to copy for decades, but the countless small human moments that reminded people they mattered to him, even for just a few seconds. 10. The sign language surprise. One of the most powerful stories fans still share involves a young girl who could not hear. She stood at the edge of the barricade, holding a sign written not in words, but in careful, hand-drawn symbols. Her own way of saying she loved him, adapted, so he might understand even without sound. Most people passing by didn't notice. Michael did. He stopped, studied the sign for a moment, and then, slowly, using gestures her family had taught him just moments before through an interpreter, he signed back to her. Her face lit up in a way words could never fully describe. For the first time, she wasn't just watching her idol from a distance. She was communicating with him, in her own language, on her own terms. It was a small gesture that took him only seconds, but for her family, it was a moment that proved Michael Jackson's compassion had no barriers, not even the barrier of sound. These are just a few of the countless moments that made Michael Jackson unforgettable, not only as an artist, but as a person who understood the power of a single smile, a single word, a single gesture. Behind every hit song, every record-breaking tour, and every dance move that changed pop culture forever, there was a man who never stopped noticing the people who loved him. He remembered names. He kept promises. He turned ordinary encounters into memories that lasted a lifetime. That's the part of his story that statistics and album sales can never fully capture. The human side, the quiet side, the side that only came out in these unscripted, unplanned moments with the people who admired him most. And maybe that's exactly why, so many years later, we're still watching these clips, still sharing these stories, and still feeling that same lump in our throats every single time. If this story moved you the way it moved us, make sure to subscribe for more untold moments from the life of the King of Pop. Drop a comment below and tell us which moment touched you the most. We read every single one, because with Michael Jackson, you never knew what beautiful surprise was coming next.